Hello, episode 5, episode cinco, episode...
I don't know any other words for 5.
Fun fact, when I was in Puerto Rico on vacation as a child, there were some pretty girls at the beach, and apparently...
They didn't want to talk to you?
Well, that's not the point here. Apparently, the only Spanish word I could think of at the moment was cinco, and so I just repeatedly looked at them and said, cinco, 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 to which they continued walking down the beach.
As would be expected. Now, to be perfectly fair in this situation, I feel like you could have recited Shakespeare in Spanish, and chances are they still would have just walked down the beach.
I was a dashing young lad.
There was no dashing in your life when you were a lad.
Dashing through the snow to get some cookies and hot chocolate. It did look like Ralphie in the Christmas Story as a kid.
Oh, jeez.
Well, here we are, episode 5. If you've been joining us since the beginning, wow.
Congratulations.
That's a lot of commitment.
It is, but, stick with us because it's going to stay pretty average.
So we're going to kick things off talking about a few things that have happened in sports. We're going to talk a little bit about prospecting players, especially baseball.
Yeah.
That's a sport where you can have a lot of fun with it in the collecting and in that hobby. But we're going to kick it off talking about finals, just a recap of what we've been through, what we've just seen. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season, oh, yeah, Milwaukee and Phoenix, that's going to be your finals matchup.
I wouldn't have been shocked with Milwaukee. They weren't my favorite coming out of the East, but I wouldn't have been shocked if you said that. I did not expect to see Phoenix come out.
Yeah, the matchup itself was surprising. Phoenix comes out looking dominant, and I legitimately was thinking there's no way they're going to get caught. But
Suns in 4.
Yeah, Suns in 4 is the direction it's heading. That's what all the media was saying. And then they're like, oh, yeah, they're going back to Milwaukee, where they haven't won in a billion years.
And also, Chris Paul turned into a frightened old man overnight. Oof. It was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch, and I wanted that for him. I did.
Well, I think almost everybody that's a sports fan wanted that for him. Like, this is an all-time great. He finally got there, and for 2 games, he looked like an all-time great. And then legitimately, it was like he woke up one day and went, wait a minute, we're in the finals, and his butthole sealed up watertight, and that was it.
Y'all know what we're talking about that. Your butthole sealing up watertight?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's not something that normally people say. Like, I feel like our audience will know exactly what I mean.
I can tell you right now the audience agrees. I can see it.
You can?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Not their buttholes, but this is going down.
Yeah, let's see where we're at in the schedule here. We got show prep over there.
But anyway, a couple players we want to talk about in relation to the hobby, most affected potentially by this. First off, let's just talk about the season. So, we look back at the football season. Everybody's hyping up this Kansas City, New England, I almost said Tampa Bay Super Bowl. And we're getting all hyped up about, Tom Brady, Mahomes, what's going to happen. And inevitably, every time a season ends in a volatile market, everything does what?
Gets wonky. You don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
You get spikes. You get massive dips, massive spikes.
2 weeks after the season's over, collectors are kind of like, all right, what's
next?
What's going to move? Where's the action? Especially with a lot of the short-term flippers, as they're enjoying the fun of flipping a card, or somebody goes off for a triple-double or throws 4 touchdowns. Like, as the market's moving during that season, as soon as the season ends, there's a little bit of a dip. I remember some friends with some Brady rookie stuff going into the Super Bowl, and they're like, man, this is going to be worth a ton. I was like, you better sell it before the Super Bowl. And they're like, you're crazy. And sure enough, a little bit of a dip even after Tom Brady did the unthinkable.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a dip. So I'm telling you right now, if you're sitting on your Greek freaks.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, volatility can be your friend. It can be your enemy. The functionality of any effective market and the people who come out on top of it are the ones who choose to not be greedy and take their gains when they're there. If you were sitting on Giannis heading into Game 6, Game 7, and thinking that he was going to win a chip and his prices were going to spike back up to where they were last summer, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but anybody who has been following what the hobby's been doing for the last few months could have told you that that was never going to happen. His stuff did get about a 10 to 15% bump, but his PSA 10 Prism rookie cards were going for $7,000 last summer.
Yeah.
They're going for 25 now. Before this series, they were 18 to 2.
25 what?
2,500.
Yeah, that's 25 grand.
No, 2,500. They're a third of what they were last summer, and they're higher now than they were before he won the chip. But they're going to settle back into that $2,200 to $2,300 range. I've said it the last couple of episodes in relation to different things, but I think it bears repeating for the people in the back that might not be hearing it or are
Listen
delusional
up.
about it. The days of 8, 9, 10xing stuff overnight, especially on bigger stuff like that, are gone.
Yeah.
They're done. They're over. COVID is done. It's not really done, but as far as the way we're operating as a society, people are going back to their lives. People are spending their money on vacation. They're spending their money on other things. They're out and about. Whereas last year, there was nothing you could do. You were stuck in your house. You're getting money from the government every few months, and why not? Let's speculate and buy some sports cards. It'll be a nice way to relive our childhood and make some money. And it was, and it still can be, but you're not going to buy a Giannis before game 6 for $1,800 and sell it for $9,000 3 days later. Those days are gone.
Let's talk a little bit about Chris Paul, the Phoenix situation as well. This conference is not up for grabs the way that it was this year.
You talking about the West?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the
So,
West was wonky this year.
The that's 2 wonkies.
It is.
A
You're
third wonky, you're done today.
there
You
might
hear
be
me?
a third.
You say wonky one more time.
Wonk.
I'm going to take your girly beer you're drinking.
No, you're not.
Cider girls.
Yeah, Cider Boys.
Cider boys.
Peach Country. Delicious.
Yeah. Well, it's not nearly as manly as my Michelob
It's
Ultra.
not as manly as your Mick Ultra. You're right.
Yeah. Hey, and for those of you wondering, no, it's not the skinny can. It's a bottle. I'm a man.
That's how you want to defend that. Anyway, Chris Paul. So we talked about Chris Paul last episode in Pop and Drop. And I still stand by the fact that he was a pop going into that series because the upside of him winning a championship was way higher than any potential downside of him not winning. His stuff wasn't going to drop if they didn't win, but if they did, he was going to pop off. If you took that advice and you went out and bought some Chris Paul stuff, you're not in any worse shape than you were before. You can convert that back into a liquid cash money pretty simply and pretty directly, and you're fine. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. I would still hold it because the dude's a lock first ballot Hall of Famer, and his stuff will continue to go up, but you're not going to see that short-term jump that you would have been able to flip.
Right.
You know,
Does Phoenix make this run back?
I don't know. It's the West in general is going to be the Lakers aren't going to be as bad as they were coming into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, Space Jam 2's been released.
Well, AD should be
LeBron
healthy.
is going to go pick
Although
somebody
there's
up.
some weird trade things that are floating around out there. Like I heard rumors today that there been proposed trade talks with Washington to bring Russell Westbrook to Los Angeles. That would be the worst.
Him and LeBron
fit.
will get along real well.
That would be horrifyingly bad. Like Russell Westbrook is the most ball dominant player of the generation outside of James Harden. And LeBron is pretty ball dominant too. The offense needs to run through him. Now he's going to distribute. Russell Westbrook, once it gets to him, that ball stopped. It's
the
done.
bucket or-
Well, he's going to make a shot. He's going to go after the bucket once it gets to him. So that's a terrible, terrible fit. If that happens, then I would say that the Lakers are not a contender at all. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Lillard, whether he ends up staying in Portland, whether he ends
Lot
up
of
going
talk.
anywhere else.
There was some rumors about potentially Memphis, which I feel like that's a lateral move to go from one small market team like that to another.
Well,
you got
from
a little bit more to work with on that
Well, that's what I was
roster.
going to say. From a marketing standpoint, it probably is. But from a basketball standpoint, boy, you put Dame with Ja Morant, that's a scary, scary backcourt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a scary backcourt.
I'm terrified just thinking about it.
All righty. We're gonna roll with some
All right, enough of
funky dad
basketball.
jokes.
Basketball's over.
Yes, it is.
You know it's not over.
Baseball. Yeah.
Baseball, because baseball is pretty much all year.
Well,
That's a lot. That's a lot.
it is, and for a lot of us, baseball was the first thing we ever collected. The first sports cards I ever owned were baseball cards.
I never asked you this. Was baseball the first sport you played?
It was not the first sport that I played.
Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic.
I'm way
Dungeons
older
and
than
Dragons. You're old.
that.
Were
Basketball?
you allowed to? You were a pastor's kid. Were you allowed to do Dungeons and Dragons? Was that approved?
No, not at all. Now, when I got to high school, I still did.
You snuck it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like I knew you played Dungeons and Dragons. I was just trying to find a fun way to coerce that. It
Doesn't bother me. See, Jason has this weird idea that I get embarrassed about the things that I enjoy. I am the epitome of the word nerd. I enjoy the things I enjoy, and I don't care at all whether other people enjoy them in the least.
Societal norms and expectations just
Don't
seem
apply
to
to me.
exist.
Yeah, it doesn't fit with me at all. Anyway, baseball was not the first sport that I played. Basketball was. I was really bad at baseball. I tried to play it as a little kid and then didn't play it at all anymore. It was a little too slow moving for me playing it. I always enjoyed watching it and
They put
collecting
you in right
cards.
field,
No.
left field.
First base.
Oh, damn it, that's right.
First base.
Yeah. All right.
And then in high school, my football coach was also our basketball coach and wanted me to play baseball too. And I tried to explain to him that I was terrible at it. And he said, no, you can throw football. You'll be able to throw baseball. I was like, Coach, I can't. He was like, I'll teach you. Well, he didn't teach me.
Did you ever learn? Because I want to see this.
So,
Like, can we play catch or are you uncomfortable?
well, we can try once I loosen my shoulder up.
Oh, boy.
But
Never mind. That's fine.
It was a scary situation because you didn't know where the ball was going to go. It might bounce 4 feet in front of the plate. It might go over the backstop.
Yeah. Well,
And I threw it really hard.
And I've played at a higher level, so
That's true. You did.
the collegiate sports it's hard to, like, I still throw heaters at my son.
And by heaters, you mean slightly into the high 60 mile
I
an
got
hour
like
range?
64 mile an hour slurve.
You're running that Zenk Granky stuff up there.
Yeah, man. Not only did I play at a higher level of collegiate sports, I went back, was a hitting coach for a couple of years. So I threw a lot of BP. So I had a really good, like, 50 mile an hour curveball, but it's from like 30 feet away. So
It's really impressive when you put it all
you got to
laid
really
out that
your
way.
reaction time. Anyway, let's talk baseball now that we've talked you all out of enjoying it. All-Star break just took place, home run derby, a little bit of a star-studded cast. We didn't see everybody we'd like to see on the list. I know at the Otero household we did a little bit of a drawing where everyone in the family got a couple names. First place got $20, a crisp $20 bill. Second place got $10. And the kids took off with the money. They got all of it. I got none of it. My wife got none of it.
That's pretty much how it goes when you have kids.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I should have just given the kids money because that's just how that works.
That's how that works. Yeah.
But I want to talk about Pete Alonso, Shohei, a couple of things that happened there. Number one, Pete Alonso owns the home run derby until someone dethrones him. There's what he was doing was so casual to watch the other players completely out of breath. They're running the timer, and he's just like, this is easy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power.
It is a lot of power, but here's the thing about Pete Alonso. When we do show prep, we kind of run through and talk about some of these things so that we know what we're going to talk to you guys about. And Jason wanted to talk about Pete Alonso. I think there's a mistaken impression about Pete Alonso. I've heard several people in the last few weeks and then right after the home run derby talking about how they feel like Pete Alonso's stuff is undervalued. It's, there's a lot of room for growth. I don't know. Here's what I would say about Pete Alonso. He's a lot of fun to watch in the home run derby. But other than his rookie year, he seems to be a guy who hits 250 and is going to hit 30 home runs. Strike out a reasonable amount, not walk a ton. There's about 100 guys in MLB that are that exact same guy. He's not on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's not even on a year in and year out all-star trajectory. He's just a decent player on a big city market. Like,
You're just stealing all the fun right now.
well, I'm not trying to steal the fun, but
Like
I
a
don't want
vacuum,
people.
like a-
what I don't want
like
to
a-
see
a
a bunch
fun
of our
Hoover.
listeners do
Like a
is go
fun
out
Hoover.
and sink a bunch of money into rookie cards of Pete Alonso, thinking that it's going to gold mine for them. Like, it just isn't. I don't see it at all. Where are his stats this year? Have you pulled up anything on him this
I'm
year?
gonna do it right now and pull
Let's
it
see
quicker
what
than
we
you
got
can 'cause
here.
I'm faster than you.
Pete Alonso,
Pete
2021
Alonso,
stats. You're slow.
2021
I'm already there.
Stats. Darn it! I clicked.
So
on that
regular
article.
season, he's hitting 258. He's got, 18 home runs? Something like that. He's on pace to hit 28, 29 home runs. He's got 19 home runs. So he's on pace to hit about 32 and bat 260. That's not even top 30 in the league
On what?
on any of those stats.
Mm.
So is he undervalued? I don't think so. He's fun. If you enjoy Pete Alonso and you want to own one of his PSA 10 rookie cards to have in your collection, that's awesome. Go do that. I enjoyed every minute of watching him play in the Home Run Derby. He had so much fun. It's what baseball should be about. It was great. But that dude is not, I don't see him ever hitting 50 home runs again like he did his rookie year.
Yeah. ESPN article, Alden Gonzalez says there was a quote from Alonso as he repeats the Home Run Derby. This is a direct quote. "I think I'm the best power hitter on the planet."
Well, any high-level athlete has to think that. I mean, I read a quote from...
Do you think that?
Do I think he's the best power hitter on the planet? No, I don't think he's close. But he has to believe that in his heart if he wants to compete at a high level. I mean, that's what he has to believe, but he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best power hitter when a 70-year-old's throwing 55-mile-an-hour cutters to him.
Do not besmirch whoever that...
No, it was perfect. He was great BP pitcher.
Did you see
they were all in the same spot?
They
bam,
They showed it on that radar later
Yeah.
where it was like, this dude is just throwing them right down the pipe.
Yeah.
Who was it that was getting screwed on that? Was it Soto?
Yeah, there were a couple
Soto
guys.
was getting some terrible
pitches.
pitches.
It was like if I was out there throwing.
Yeah, you could tell he wanted to be disappointed, but he was too out of breath to say anything. Let's talk about that for a second. All right, so Home Run Derby, different opinions on it. This format where there's a timer, and if you hit it far enough, you can earn bonus points. Here's my thing. I'm not playing it's in a video game. This is real life Home Run Derby. And
As you sit on the couch and watch it happen.
Yeah, I'm the armchair quarterback in my house, bro. But I'm saying that give them their pitches, give them their outs. But we don't need this bonus time, get a timeout. It's Home Run Derby.
You're real salty.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was entertaining that it like added some elements to the way they were playing the game, but it's like there's a lot in baseball where I feel like baseball is constantly trying to fix the wrong things.
Well, I would agree with that. Rob Manfred is awful. We had this discussion last episode. Give me back Bud Selig.
Stop it.
I'm just saying.
He would have ended the Home Run Derby like halfway through.
Well, he might have, but at least there would have been some thought given to how it would affect the game in general. Yeah. Rob Manfred is destroying baseball.
So let's talk about that just for a minute, even though it's not in the notes. I think there's a huge issue in the MLB right now where there is no priority on emphasizing the marketability of some of these stars with the younger generations.
Oh, 100%. If you want to fix baseball, it's really easy.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's actually very, very easy.
Gary LeMaster for commish.
Sign me up. I'll fix it. Then I'll go back to fixing garage doors. Like, I'm good with that. Here's how you fix baseball.
You'd retire on 1/4 of a year's salary.
It's very simple. One, you stop marketing teams and you start marketing players.
Absolutely.
Sports are player driven now. The NFL has embraced it. The NBA pioneered it. You start marketing guys and you don't ask them to do it themselves. You've got some really marketable dudes in the game right now. In my opinion, guys that can have the same impact on the longevity of the sport and popularity of the sport as Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did when they saved the NBA.
Yeah.
You look at Fernando Tatis, you look at Juan Soto, you look at Vladimir Guerrero, you look at even some of the guys that have been around for a little while on the pitching side of the things. You look at Justin Verlander, you look at Max Scherzer. These guys are still they're Hall of Famers that are still going at a high level, have been around for a while. And then these young guys that are coming up that are making waves and doing a lot of really impressive things.
Yeah.
As a unit, as MLB, market those guys. Stop worrying about marketing teams, market players. That's one. Two, put a timer on pitchers. That will speed up the game. Forget the extra innings stuff with a runner on second and all that stuff. Just put a timer on pitchers. Pitchers have a 20-second timer. That's it. If you haven't thrown a pitch within 20 seconds, it's a ball. Next. Speed up the game that way. The last thing you do is you make some adjustments to the playoff structure. I love the wild card structure. Now let's go back to what we did in 2020 and bring a few more teams in and get things going. That's how you keep your fan base engaged. I don't want to hear it waters everything down. Nobody cares what's watered down. Fan bases want to be engaged as long as possible.
It's a lot of games in a season.
It is a lot of games. So engage people.
Yeah, I agree.
And then shorten the season if you need to. Like, cut 30 games out. Do we need 162 games? I don't think we do.
You will, I would argue and say, yes, you do, and here's why. Baseball might be the nerdiest major sport in that stats seem to be driving so much of the narrative.
Well, they always have.
So when you're comparing records, when you're comparing, there's always a conversation about a record every year. So when you start shortening the season, it's different from football, in my opinion, where it's like 1 week, right?
Yeah, but do people think that Ty Cobb's numbers weren't valid or Christy Mathewson's numbers weren't valid?
No, but it's the new generation when someone's doing something that it gets discounted because the season's shorter or the season's longer or would they have stayed healthier?
But does it, though? Does the younger audience that they're trying to engage really care that Babe Ruth played a different number of games than Lou Gehrig, than Roger Maris did? Or that Hank Aaron played more years? Do they really care, or do they just care about that instant moment? I mean, think about the way that people that are 15 to 30 ingest information now. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's what's happening right now.
Yeah. But it's also typically being delivered, especially on the sports front. I don't know if you noticed this. I remember watching ESPN and it just being like, here's what happened in sports yesterday. Now, 90% of what you're watching on any sports network is 2 to 3 people debating 1 point in 10-second
so
clips.
opinions, yeah.
So I do think the younger generation, because of that, is kind of tuning in for that comparison conversation. Because it's happened all the time. LeBron Jordan, we're seeing these things.
LeBron.
Brady, Mahomes, who's going to, eclipse somebody. So we do see a lot of those conversations happening. So I don't know. I think the marketability, absolutely. I think pace of play, absolutely. The endorsement deals, let baseball players, why can't they be rock stars? I just feel like there's just
Fernando Tatis is starting to get there, but he's doing it all himself. MLB isn't doing it. Yeah. You watch MLB commercials for games that are coming up. They don't do what the NBA does. They don't push those narratives.
Yeah. I don't want to watch my team on Bally's Sports Network.
Oh,
I want us to be on TV.
I was very confused. I didn't know what you were talking about. I was like, are you going to the gym?
No, it's
and
just like
watching
this sports
or?
network. Third party, hockey's more accessible in America. What's happening?
I wouldn't say that hockey's more accessible, but you have to.
No offense to the hockey.
You have to be local. That all being said, we're talking about all this stuff, and we've barely talked about cards. So let's talk about cards with baseball a little bit.
Prospecting baseball.
Yes, prospecting baseball. So if you're not familiar with what prospecting is in the sports card world, it is when you buy up large quantities of unknown rookies and hold on to them for years and hope that they eventually become something. Yeah. Bowman is the king of this. I love doing it. Bowman is one of, if not my very favorite product out of all sports and all everything. Every year I jump into tons and tons of breaks. In the last 2 weeks, I've done so many Bowman Sapphire breaks that I don't even want to look at my bank account. I've done so much of that stuff. Right before our episode tonight, I picked up some 2020 Bowman cello packs, and Jason and I ripped them just to get in the mood a little bit before we recorded.
Did not go well.
It was not great. A paper J-Dom and a
Reese Hines auto.
A Reese Hines auto and a cello pack. An
auto and a cello pack's not
it's
terrible.
Nothing to be upset about. But prospecting is a blast, and it's why Bowman's so much fun. I can buy a ton of Bowman every year, rip it. It's not super expensive. Like if you get into Bowman Draft and HTAs and jumbos, you can get expensive. But just regular hobby boxes, you can usually find retail out there because it's not a flip product for most people. And you can rip the stuff, take all the Bowman firsts, stick them in a box other than the big names. Here's the thing with Bowman, though, and it's a really big deal. If there's 3 or 4 names that are super hot and you rip those cards, unless it's a guy that you feel in your soul is a lock, sell them. Take all the other guys, stick them in a box, and every 2 years pull out your Bowman boxes and go treasure hunting.
Yeah, here in just a second we'll explain why digging up some old Bowman stuff can be ludicrous for you.
Oh, it could be amazing.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
You've been pining, you've been waiting for Rega and Rhoda to get back together. We gotcha. Press Play Podcast. We're ready to go. We're going to have our podcast with everything that you want. Browns, Cavaliers, Indians, Ohio State, the national scene. Kenny Rhoda, Michael Regai back together again. Make sure you keep your ears open. It's happening right here on Press Play Podcast. See you then.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we're back. We're talking baseball prospecting. We're talking about the process in which we sell or put some cards away. And, Gary, you were just saying that if you hit one or two of those guys that everybody's already talking about, you may be better off just selling that. In the meantime, any of those firsts that you get, any color, which when we say color, we mean a color variation, a numbered card, an insert is kind of like what we used to call that. Put that in a sleeve. And I'll break it down even further. When we talk sleeves, so I had a couple conversations since our last episode with listeners. When you say sleeves, what do you mean? I've got this old 87 Barry Bonds in a plastic sleeve. I said, well, is it in a soft sleeve? Well, it's kind of hard, kind of soft. So when we say that, it's a little silicone
It's
penny
called a
sleeve.
penny sleeve.
Yeah, so super soft. You buy that, you put your card in that, and then you put your card, which is already in that penny sleeve,
Into a top loader,
which is like the a little bit more rigid plastic casing to put that in. That is the best simple way to protect your card. So do that with some of your firsts, or at least a penny sleeve. Put it in a box where it can't get dinged
Anything
up.
that's a chrome card should go into a penny sleeve if it's a first and you're hanging on to it so that it doesn't get surface
How does somebody
issues.
know it's a Bowman first?
It'll literally say first on the top right or left corner of the card, depending on the year of the card. Bowman has the way that Bowman firsts work is they're like a pre-rookie card. It's the first card that's produced of any player in their professional uniform. Now, what's crazy about Bowman and where it gets confusing and why a lot of people just start getting into Bowman and then they bail because it's too much information is a Bowman first is very specific. That player may be in the minors for 3 or 4 years before he gets to the majors. And between the time his Bowman first comes out and his actual rookie cards come out, he's going to have 3 or 4 or 5 more Bowman prospect cards. It's not the same thing. It's no different than having a 4th or 5th year card of a major league star. It doesn't mean it has no value, but it doesn't have anywhere near the value that a first has.
Right.
And then that he will also get a rookie card from Topps when he makes his
Which
professional
typically
debut.
doesn't hold anywhere near the same value as the first chrome or first variation card.
Yeah, it depends on the player, but in general, that's true. Bowman tends to be a little bit shorter printed than regular Topps does. It's usually printed in line with what Topps Chrome is, print run wise.
Yeah, right now circulating, which we can track it down and put it in the Facebook group. If you're not in the Ball Card Show Facebook group, you should be.
Yeah,
but we'll drop this video in. There's a video circulating right now of a breaker back in the day ripping a pack open, and there's a Mike Trout orange auto.
2009, baby.
2009, and he's literally like, oh, Mike Trout, I wonder if this guy's any good. It's a nice auto anyway. Congrats whoever hit that. little bit of a story on it. The original poster, the breaker that did this, said that the card was sold for like somewhere between $200 to $400 at that time to somebody that was like, "Oh, I'll take a chance on that guy." What do you think that would do right about now?
PSA 10's probably 600,000 to 700,000.
Yeah.
And of 25, Bowman First Auto.
And here's the thing with these prospect cards, like you can do some homework and research. We'll talk about that in just a second. But put them in a box, put them away. You don't stress it like, is this guy going to be good? Should I pitch or keep it?
Hang
if it's
on
a
to it.
first, I keep all the first, even as
Yeah.
paper first, whatever. And just keep it for a few years. Because right now I have some guys that are 2019 and then 2020 who are starting to creep up and people are getting excited about. And I go back and look through, I was like, oh man, I have 5 of their Chrome first.
Well, a perfect example of that, and we're not doing a ton with like pop and drop type stuff this week. We'll do a little bit, but a guy who is on that list for me from 2020, he was a first-round draft pick, late pick, and there was a little bit of hype about him, but nowhere near everybody else. And his stuff last year, you could buy it, his paper stuff in quarter boxes and his Chrome stuff in dollar boxes. You could get his short print numbered stuff for less than $20. Autos for $15-20 base ones. Anthony Volpe. The kid is murdering the ball. He just got bumped from low A to high A. He's 20 years old. He just turned 20 years old. And he is just crushing the ball, hitting for average, hitting home runs, and he's a Yankee.
That never hurts.
No, that's amazing for the
collectability.
hobby. And if you know baseball and you watch the kid play, there are a lot of Derek Jeter comparisons. Jeter with more power. He's got the same type of defensive
That's a
range.
big statement.
It is a big statement. And will it pan out? Maybe not. But right now, if you stockpiled his stuff last year, his papers are now selling for $2 to $3 a piece raw. His Chromes are selling for 10 to 12. His Mojos are selling for 30, and his Sapphires are selling for 60 to 80.
And expect a wave of the graded 10s to come in from SGC, from PSAs, and stuff over the last year. You're going to see a little bit of a spike with that, typically, just based on how this stuff is getting returned. You know, so you have companies that are getting things turned around when they say, and you have other ones that are still holding on to stuff from a year ago.
And my CSG order finally went to grading / encapsulation.
Well, congratulations.
I still don't think I'll see them before 2023, but
I'm happy for you.
well, thank you.
Will you own them somewhere in the ether?
Somewhere in the ether, they're being held hostage.
So let's talk about if you're somebody that's like maybe a little more risk averse or somebody that wants to dive in and feel like you know a little bit more. How do we go about researching and taking a look at what the experts are saying about a prospect? We could like somebody, we could like the team, we could hear somebody give a little buzz about them, but it's always important to do your own research with some of this stuff. So, Gary, where would you look? What are some resources that you would take a look at?
Specifically baseball-wise, first one would be Baseball America. Baseball Prospectus is also very good. MILB.com. That's the minor league baseball website that's run by MLB. There's a lot of good info there. They'll give you prospect rankings and prospect lists. Another thing, if you know baseball, this is a really important caveat. If you don't know what you're looking at when you watch somebody swing, if you don't know what you're looking at when you watch somebody in the field other than they're playing baseball, don't try to use your own eyes. Trust professionals. But if you do know what you're looking at, if you know what a good swing looks like, if you've got a guy that you've heard good things about, hop online and go watch his highlights. You watch Anthony Volpe swing, you know, if you know a swing. Same thing with Jason Dominguez. There was a video of him last week circling the bases, and he tried to slide, and it was horrifyingly
Might have been
bad.
the worst slide I've seen in years.
But if you watch the swing he took that got him running into third base, you were like, oh, that's why everybody's hyped about this kid, because that swing's
sure.
legit.
Awesome. Well, we encourage you to take a look at it. A Bowman product. Bowman offers a few different products. One of them that, you know, is probably my favorite. I know you enjoy it too, is the Sapphire. And it's a little more accessible than it has been because of some of the correction, right?
So 2 reasons that Bowman Sapphire this year is a little bit less expensive. If you're looking for a product to buy and rip or a product to buy and stash, baseball-wise, it's a great run this year. Bowman Sapphire is a online exclusive. It's only orderable through Topps' website, and it sells out pretty quick. They increased the print run this year a decent amount, but it's still one of their shortest print run products. The last couple days, the price on those boxes has crept up a little bit. As of about a week or so ago, you could buy those boxes for $225, $230. They're running about $270 now.
And what are we getting in those boxes?
It's 32 cards in a box. It's not a huge number of cards. You're not ripping anything big, but it doesn't take much to come out ahead. If you hit an Austin Martin base, just a base Austin Martin, it's a $75 or $80 card.
Because
right
these look like Panini talks about them as cracked ice.
Yeah,
right? So
even the base cards
they're
look like
gorgeous.
cracked ice.
They're
beautiful
gorgeous cards.
And they're actually, the quality control has been really good on them this year. Like, I can't tell you how many breaks I've been in to watch this. So the quality control is great. There's 4 or 5 guys in this year's Bowman that I'm super, super stoked about. Adenzo Reyes, Maximo Acosta, Austin Martin's the one everybody is all over, and rightfully so. The kid can play. But there are quite a few guys in this class that are legitimate. And the nice thing about Sapphire is that it's got a few firsts that don't have a base card. They only have an autograph and then autograph variations. So you got Hedbert Perez in Milwaukee. You got Deshaun Knowles for the Angels. Helderberto, is it Rodriguez for the Texas Rangers? I can't think of that dude's name, but there's 4 or 5 guys that are just auto only. Tough to hit, but you can get into breaks of this stuff. I've been getting into 30, 40, 50 box breaks of this stuff in player breaks for reasonable dollars. I got Adenzo Reyes in a 50 box break for $70. I'll take that all day long. Yeah. I mean, I'm paying a $1.10 a box to try to go after that player. Yeah, I'll do that all day.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're considering getting into some baseball, maybe you haven't done that, especially I think with a lot of newer collectors, typically the market starts for people today with basketball, as you know, the big rookie class from Zion and Ja made the big push, football, and then baseball. But if you're looking for an opportunity to collect, to chase some players, to be your own expert, I think that's one of the things that's unique about baseball is because it's like such a slow cooker for those first few years that they're in the pros and they're coming up through the minors. It's an opportunity to do your own research and kind of have a little bit of an edge. You'll find some of the most arrogant collectors or prospectors that love baseball.
We think we know more than everybody else.
Yeah,
that's true story.
For sure. You see something that none of the scouts saw.
Right.
Who were paid to do that.
I will say this. When it comes to me with processing in baseball, I know enough to be able to look at some guys and see what I see, but I don't pretend that I'm an expert. Where I do,
and don't pretend that you can play catch with them, apparently.
No, not at all. But where I do get super arrogant is football. Yeah. I'm super arrogant. I'm that guy when it comes to football.
And listeners, I can't wait for you to hear him try to break down a play and say it in the only way that can go over everyone's head to exude his dominance and experience in the sport.
It is what it is.
Anyway, it's been a fantastic episode 5. Do some prospecting. It's worth it. Hope that you have a great week, and we'll be back very soon.
Jump in the Facebook page. Come join us there. Ask questions. Interact with us. We're reasonably pleasant people most of the time.
All right. Bye, everybody.